I am speaking today with Doug Jones, candidate for governor of the state of Alabama and former United States Senator. So we'll be talking about things that overlap those two positions that he is seeking to have and otherwise has already had, and the problems related thereto when it comes to the operational procedures that are, I would say, not taking place in our government. Welcome to The Real Truth. Good day, everyone. Welcome to The Real Truth. I'm Tommy Spina. Today's guest is former United States Senator Doug Jones. Welcome to our show, Doug.
Tommy, always great to be with you, buddy.
We've talked a lot over the past, I hate to say it, almost half a century.
Yeah.
Can you believe that?
It's pushing it. No, I can't. I can't. I remember those young lawyer days.
Oh gosh, boy, I had a lot of energy back then. I think it disappeared somewhere around the sixth decade. It started waning, and now I'm in the seventh decade, and I'm halfway through that one, and I don't know. It's a thrill a minute. But anyway, I appreciate you taking the time out of what is a very busy schedule to spend some time with me, not only talking about what's going on in our federal government, but also what's going on with you personally in your run for governor of the state of Alabama. So
Thanks.
I think they kind of overlap to some degree, but let's talk about the federal level first, if you don't mind. I've been trying to focus on the First Amendment. However, you can't talk about the First Amendment without spilling into all other abuses of power that I feel are taking place at a federal level. And just this morning, although this podcast will not air until probably a week from today, the president has been told he can no longer build his ballroom. Now, whether that stays in place or not, an injunction has been entered. It reminds me of some projects around my household. They always cost more and take longer,
Right.
but they don't involve a building that I don't own. And I think that therein lies the bottom line issue for this judge. It's just like, this is not your house. In any event, we've got a war going on. We've got Congress that never blessed the war. They call it a war, and then they don't act like it is a war. Can you address what you see? I would say not going on in Washington that should be going on in Washington.
Yeah, I mean, look, what's not going on in Washington is fairly simple. What's not going on is a Congress that is functional at this point. What's not going on is a Congress on the House or the Senate that is acting as a check, which under the Constitution, we've all grew up and learned about checks and balances. And it appears that the Congress of the United States is just simply ceding that checking authority for the executive branch, just ceding it, totally taking it away and rubber stamping whatever he's done. You mentioned the White House ballroom. That judge said that he should have gone to Congress to try to get that. There are all manner of things that have been put in place that if there are changes to be made, they can be made, but they need to go through a process. The war is the same thing. Everybody knows that this is a war. This is not an excursion. This is not just a simple military exercise. As the president has said, he is trying to completely obliterate Iran. And so with no congressional oversight or authority, Congress is just ceding it, and they need to get back in the business of trying to put some brakes on what's going on with this president, who has just decided that he has unbridled power.
Well, why do you think they fear retaliation in some way?
Of course. I think that there is a portion.
What would be those retaliatory things? that
All right.
he
Well,
could do? Let's say you are now back as Senator Jones,
right.
and you certainly would be raising hell about what's going on. I know you would.
Yeah.
Nobody's raising hell. I mean, some people
Well,
are softly speaking hell, but I
you
would.
know, all right, so let's set the stage a little bit, Tommy, because I do think that there are Democrats that are consistently raising questions, raising hell, going on social media, going on the media, and challenging the president. The problem is that those Democrats have no power, no authority whatsoever. The way Congress works in both the House and the Senate, the majority party controls subpoenas, they control the agenda, and there's very little that the minority party can do except use a bully pulpit. In the Senate, they still have, at least right now, the filibuster, which is really the filibuster is a kind of a misconception, because you can still talk a bill to death. You can still talk and maintain control like Cory Booker did not too long ago.
Oh yeah.
But filibuster and cloture means ending debate, and it is now a matter of routine in the Senate for every bill. They immediately file what they know as a cloture petition, which is to end debate. That's what takes the 60 votes right now. A lot of talk about doing away with that. There was talk during the Biden administration about doing away with it when Democrats controlled. Now Donald Trump wants to do away with it, and a number of Republicans. Thus far, the majority leader in the Senate, John Thune, is holding firm that we're not going to blow up the filibuster. We'll see.
And he's Republican, of course.
And he's a Republican. Yes, Republicans control the House and the Senate. So in the Senate, the minority, the Democrats can talk, they can use their platform, and if things come to the floor, they can block it if they want to, or they can try to get something to the floor like they did recently with the War Powers Act. They wanted to, there was a bill that they introduced, I think Tim Kaine and Rand Paul, Republican, may have introduced it, to require the president to come back to the Senate to get additional authority before he does any more damage in Iran. That failed because it couldn't get 60 votes. Republicans all voted against it except Rand Paul. So we go back to, why are they doing this? I think that there is a cadre, obviously, of folks on in the Republican Party in the House and the Senate who absolutely believe they're ready. They're ready to stand behind Donald Trump come hell or high water. Tommy Tuberville is one of those. Katie Britt appears to be one of those. Certainly every member of the delegation, Republican member of the Alabama delegation, I put in that camp, that they're just willing to walk over hot coals. It doesn't matter what the president asks. But then there are others that I think they fear a primary. They want to keep their jobs, and their job is important, and it's more important to them than their soul. And so they don't want to get a primary opponent in their next election so that they can win re-election. That's the fear. That's what the president has over them, unless there is some specific withholding of funds or whatever that he's threatened to do in their particular district or state. And that has happened. I mean, this is a very transactional government right now. And we are living in an era of retribution out of this administration. And there then lies the era of a fear of retribution. We're seeing it playing out across the country in Washington and in here in Alabama.
Well, I know that one particular candidate that is supported by our current unitary executive, as Judge Clement liked to refer to him as when I interviewed him. So I have picked up that phrase from him. It's a pretty good one.
It is a good one.
That is being supported by the unitary executive in Alabama, and he's got like a 7% approval rating, or he's at the low end of the primary polls that are coming up. So do you feel like there's some turnabout going on? I do, because of what's happened in Florida and what's happened in Texas, of all places, both of those places, of all places. uh, that there's some movement and people are finally beginning to pay attention. I mean, we will never reverse those people that are deeply entrenched in the philosophy of our executive.
Right.
Uh, but
Well,
I think
you
there's
know,
some movement.
I think there is, but that movement is primarily among independents. And maybe some more moderate folks, whether they're independents or not. I think the independent identification in Alabama has grown exponentially over the last year. That people don't like either party. They don't like Republicans. They don't like Democrats. And so they have moved to an independent. And I think that's a healthy thing. I'm all for, I believe that both parties need loyalists in each party. But I think a very healthy chunk of the electorate that is an independent that says we're going to look at candidates and not political parties, I think that can be very healthy for any state, but particularly for Alabama, where we've gone from one party state to a different one party state in a very short period of time. So I think that could be very helpful. And I agree with you. You know, it's one thing for the president just to make an endorsement. It's another one for them to come in and go full bore. I haven't seen that happening right now. And the fact of the matter is, the one particular race that you're talking about, people don't know anybody. I mean, everybody is at a very low end of the scale because people in Alabama, Tommy, just don't pay as much attention to their state government as they should. And that's one thing that we're going to be doing in our campaign. We are trying to shine a light on state government, what's really going on in Montgomery. This whole PSC debacle is prime example of that. And try to kind of make sure folks understand that it is your state and local governments where the rubber meets the road, where things can really get done for you and your family on a very personal and local level. But people don't really fully, I think, see that. We don't have the news media that we used to, and it's gone. And people get their information in different sources, and that's usually not coming out of Montgomery. And that's the way they like it down in Montgomery, by the way. They want to do their thing to theirself and by themselves without any real oversight. So I think part of this is, and the reason I like doing podcasts like yours is so that we can get information out to folks about what's going on and pay attention to what's happening in Montgomery. Contact your local officials and ask them why they're doing this or why won't they do another issue that it means it's important to you.
Well, you caused my brain to think of two things. One, do you think there will be a different atmosphere post November? There's got to be a change in philosophy of those individuals that are reluctant to maybe come out, for lack of a better word, and express some displeasure with the way things are going now. After they get that job security they're holding out for.
Well, I think that there will be some of that after the midterm elections. I think that what I'm very concerned about is how the elections will be conducted in key battleground House districts, in key battleground state in Senate, in the Senate races in some key states. I'm concerned about it in Alabama, where if we get high voter turnout in certain areas that tend to vote Democratic, that the state government, the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, whoever, local officials are going to try to depress that vote. They're going to. It's hard enough to vote in Alabama as it is. If folks make it harder and depress that vote, it's going to depress votes. They're going to be very strategic with it. But I do think right now you're seeing things moving in a way where independents are engaged. They don't like what's going on in Washington, D.C. Quite frankly, what we're seeing is they don't like what's going on in Montgomery, Alabama. And I think you're going to see them engage more and will get out to vote, and they're going to vote for change. And that's the key, I think, in this election. This is a change vote nationally as well as locally in Alabama, from one end of the state to the other. This is going to be a change vote folks are going to have those opportunities. And I do think it's moving that way if we can make sure that the elections are conducted in a fair manner in which the person that gets the most votes wins, and that people are encouraged to get out to vote, and we don't have the National Guard or ICE agents standing around polling places with guns.
Yeah, it is a little frightening. This whole thing with TSA that just recently resolved after a month was
but
totally unnecessary. Totally
unnecessary. And and I was in DC. All of those ICE agents that you saw in the news that were deployed around airports, they weren't doing anything except there to have a presence that was supposed to kind of deter people from unruly crowds. Well, the crowds were never unruly. You just saw big lines, but people were patient. People were frustrated, but you didn't see people breaking out the windows of the airports because they were so pissed off. That didn't happen. The ICE agents were there for a reason, and that was to establish a visible presence in areas that they're not supposed to be. And if we're going to see that, and I've at least seen reports that even with the TSA getting back to work full time, getting their paychecks, the lines going down, that this administration is going to continue to put ICE agents around airports. That is an intimidation factor. That's all that is. And if they start doing that around polling places, we are in the last throes of democracy if things like that happen.
Well, I do note that there's a bill pending. I don't know what status it is in our state legislature to keep people like me, for example, from going and voting in a Republican primary against someone and make you declare a particular party so that when November rolls around, you have to vote in that same party. You don't have an election to choose the best candidate. You can't cross over.
All right, hang on a minute. Let me make sure we get the readers. I don't want to mislead folks. There is a bill pending right now, and I think it's likely to pass, that would require political party registration for voting in the primary. In other words, if you register as a Republican, you've got to vote in the Republican primary. If you register as a Democrat, you've got to vote only in the Democratic primary and not any other political party. If you are an independent, you will not be able to vote at all in the primary election. Okay.
Period.
But that doesn't carry over to the November election. No matter who you are registered for, you can vote for anybody that's on the ballot in the November election. You will not be required to simply vote for the party ticket. And that's one of the things that we've got a bill pending too. It's not seeing the light of day. Mary Moore from here in Birmingham, with a number of Democratic co-sponsors, has filed a bill in the legislature to get rid of straight ticket voting. That is, one box straight ticket voting. It doesn't prohibit anybody from voting for all of the candidates in one political party, whether it's Republican or Democrat, but it just gets rid of that one box that you can check and not go down ballot and understand who your candidates are. But make no mistake, even with this party registration and closing the primaries, which I totally oppose, again, it's another way to rig elections. It's another way to keep people from voting. It still won't prohibit people from voting their choice, regardless of party, in a November election. It will be confusing for people, though, that will think they have to, but they won't.
Well, that's what I meant when I said I'm the kind of guy that votes the person. I'm not really interested in what party they're a member of.
Right.
I'm going to vote for who I think is best qualified and who I think more closely represents me. And that's, to me, the way it should be. And I don't think that's asking too much, but
well, and the fact of the matter is, with our gerrymandered districts, there's going to be some things like right now, if people had to choose, they may vote in a Republican primary because that's who's going to ultimately represent them in the state legislature. They may and may not care about the statewide offices on either side. But if you've got preferences on one or two ballots, you're not going to be able, you're going to have to go vote. And you choose now when you walk up to the polls, you've got to tell folks, I want to vote in the Republican primary, I vote in the Democrat. But right now, you've got that choice based on your preferences. There is this fear that Democrats are interfering in Republican primaries. That's not really happening, not the base Democratic vote. They've got their own races that we're looking at to do things, and vice versa. It's not affecting any Democrats. It is typical what this legislature does. And I say the legislature is controlled by a handful of Republican office holders. And this is the kind of thing they do. They don't do things that people want to happen, like lotteries, like the Medicaid expansion, like getting rid of or at least modifying the Choose Act. They don't do things that the people want. They do things that they don't want and they don't need. And that is a real problem. They seek solutions to problems that do not exist.
Wow. Well, how does it feel to be running against somebody that lives in Florida?
It's pretty crazy. I got to tell you, it's really funny to watch and listen to all of the folks in the Tuberville camp and some of his supporters trying to explain how he really does live in Alabama and call Alabama home. Everybody knows that that's just not the case. But, we're going to deal with that. I think it's a political issue for him. I think it's going to be it may be a serious legal issue. I don't know. It's not anything we're involved in, but it's sure going to be a political issue
for folks. Suit.
Yeah, but that's not going to go anywhere. It's premature right now. During the primary stage, the political parties control who's on the ballot. That's clear Alabama law. It is not until after the primary is over where a lawsuit will have any teeth to it if it gets filed at that point. But I do think this time this is not just about, well, does he live in Alabama? Is he your neighbor? It's not just about that. It's about following the Constitution. It's about following the law. That is something that the Congress, this president, this legislature, they don't care about that. The party right now, the Republican Party, has basically said, we don't care what the Constitution says. We're just going to let him be on the ballot. That's what they're doing. And that's what happens when you have a one-party state. They get arrogant. We know better. This is all about our power, and that's what we're going to continue to do. And if it means flouting the law, ignoring the law, we'll do it just for our own political purposes.
Well, this season of this podcast that I started was titled "We the People," and I think we the people have lost our ability to select that which we would prefer to be governed by in some shape, form, or fashion. And
I agree.
We're losing Tommy Spina's desires to some other mechanism that has nothing to do with my normal day-to-day living. What I wake up and want to do each day. It's like this surreal world that's going on, originating out of Washington, D.C., but not really trickling down to us. And I've said jokingly, because God forbid something like this happen, but until a scud hits the summit at Birmingham, nobody's going to care.
Right.
And that's what's going. I mean, we've engaged the entire Middle East in a war. They're fighting each other now with our help. I'm afraid to venture out of our country. I am leaving our country in the summer for a few weeks, and I wanted to go elsewhere than just England. However, I'm I'm looking at where we have bases because I'm concerned somebody might strike
Yeah.
where we have a base. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
think that's an unreasonable fear in
No,
this day and
look,
age.
the whole global economy has been upended by Trump's tariffs and the way he has approached this. The global economy and the global stability has been upended by his basically going one into Venezuela, two into bombing Iran, and make no mistake, Cuba is in the crosshairs. There's
Oh,
no
yeah.
question about that. You lose out on getting the Nobel Peace Prize, so you do just start doing just the opposite and going to war. It's the craziest thing, and it is going to affect folks in Alabama. It's already affecting when people's gas prices have gone up over $1 over the last 30 days or so. And if we hit ground troops going into Iran, some of those ground troops are going to be from Alabama. And some of those casualties are going to be from Alabama, just like we've seen. So it's going to hit home, but it is trickling down some to, some of the attitude, Tommy, is trickling down to Montgomery, and where folks are taking away folks' ability to do things. Look what's happening with the Public Service Commission. For 20 years, for 22 out of 26 years, Republicans have had 2 out of 3 votes on that. But it was not until Georgia elected 2 Democrats to their Public Service Commission that our legislators, Republican legislators down in Montgomery, are all of a sudden saying, oh my God, the PSC's broken. Our rates are too high. Let's fix it. How did they want to fix it? Take away your right to vote. They're still doing that. They're still creating problems. The bill that's pending right now will give Governor Ivey 4 appointments to an expanded Public Service Commission, but it will, even though there will be expanded to 7, it will be controlled by somebody in the governor's office. This is typical of how Montgomery all of a sudden wants to put a Band-Aid to try to fix a problem instead of letting the people vote. We got folks running for the PSC in the Republican primary. We got folks running for the PSC in the Democratic primary. Let's let this new PSC take over in November and bring our rates down, do the things that are necessary. Don't try to do the crazy stuff that's going on, try to just maintain power or allow the power company to maintain power.
In order of priority, in the event you become governor, what do you foresee rolling up your sleeves and doing in terms of this is what we need to address for starters? And I know
Starters
that's a long list, I would think.
It is a long list, but starters is Medicaid expansion and trying to get health care to people around the state. The governor can do that. It can expand eligibility and then work with the legislature. We have not had a champion for Medicaid expansion.
There's so much money out there for us.
I know.
And for poor people that need care. And why do we not want to take it? Because we have to pay it back?
No, it has been purely a political issue. Financially, it is a somewhat of an issue. It's going to be more now because of the bill that Tuberville and others passed, this Anything But Beautiful bill that passed this summer, is going to make Medicaid expansion a little bit harder, but it still can be done. And it will keep rural hospitals open. We can do the things to try to expand healthcare resources in these rural areas. You keep a hospital open, or you at least get some good clinics in these areas. It will expand the economy in those areas. That is going to be a huge priority for us. Workforce development, our wages are still significantly below the national average, and women's wages are even below that. And so we've got to try to figure out to get more people in the workforce and get better wages, pass a minimum wage, get the minimum wage up across the state if we can do it, but certainly in localities if we can't. Allow mayors and city councils to raise the minimum wage in their areas. Those are some of the issues. And quite frankly, I want to put a spotlight. I want to try to get in there and see what the hell is really going on in the prison system, the criminal justice system with paroles. We are going to spend $1.2 or $3 billion on one prison with another one of just that much cost coming in, and it's not going to solve the problem that
No,
we've got in our prison system.
it doesn't even rise to the level of we've got what 26,000 prisoners, inmates as we speak, and we're building a prison to house 4, as I
Right.
get, I think. So, I mean, it's just not going to fix the problem, even if we built 2 of them.
Yeah.
But let's be clear to the people that are listening. We're not talking about opening the gates to the prisons and allowing
No.
all of
No.
these mean, bad people to be wandering around the general public. There are people serving long sentences for theft-related offenses, for
Right.
smoking pot or possessing pot. It, the prison should be for violent offenders, sex offenders,
Right.
predatory people, bad people. I'm a criminal defense lawyer. I deal with some of them, although every now and then there is a mitigating factor of why a crime was committed or how a crime was committed. But what's going on now is just absurd, and we're putting a Band-Aid on a problem that needs a full body cast.
Yeah. No,
in my opinion.
You're right about that, and you and I are of the same ilk. And I've been a prosecutor on different times in my life. I've been a defense lawyer as well, and I see both sides of everything. No one is ever suggesting that our system should not punish people who are guilty of crimes. And some of those, many of those, a lot of those need to serve some time in a prison system. And candidly, even some nonviolent offenders, if they are repeat offenders, need to be punished with a little bit of time to serve to quit doing the things that they're doing. But one of the problems that we've had in this state is that once people get there, they end up spending much longer time than they should, way past the punishment fits the crime, so to speak. Violent offenders, that's a different issue. But the nonviolent offenders often spend more time in prison than they should. Our parole system has been broken. Fortunately, I think with Governor Ivey's appointments of a couple of folks, I think that's beginning to turn around, and I think that there is beginning to do some reentry programs, because that's the key too, is to trying to make sure that when folks do get out, and they will, people should be released at some point, they can be productive members of society and contribute to the economy in Alabama and raise families and do the things necessary. I think that we've had this lock them up, throw away the key kind of mentality over the years, that we need to understand how much it's going to cost to continue that. And I think there's much, much better ways. I want to see how this money's being spent, Tommy. When they first started talking about building 2 prisons, they were talking about using COVID money for up $900 million. That was going to cover 2 prisons. Well, we're at 1.2 or 3, and we're just barely about to finish one and hadn't even started the other one. There's issues of transparency about billion. Yeah. So there's issues about how that money's being spent, why the cost has jumped up like that, and how we're going to better do it. And we've got to start doing that, in not only with the transparency on how the money's spent, but also with how we're staffing these prisons. I don't think that we should be in a situation where there is as much violence going on in these prisons as they are. That seems to be coming from state people, not the prisoners themselves.
You talked about people ignoring the Constitution because they're in a position of power. And the purpose of this season is really to get into the Constitution. Last week, I spoke with a constitutional expert out of Fort Lauderdale, Bruce Rogo. He pointed out to me that the first line somewhere in the Constitution is Congress shall enact no laws. Then the rest of the Constitution comes out, which is exactly what has not happened since it got put in. They've enacted laws continuously.
Right.
And it just troubles me. It troubles me about the press. It troubles me that we don't have an ability to rely on what used to be the nightly news. I don't think there are guardrails and you can believe anything that's being reported. We have social media where there are absolutely no guardrails that get treated as fact, and there's no way to respond to it. The freedom of press is one thing, but I also think press can also get out of control. I'll give you a for instance. It happened this week to me and my former favorite employer, Sinclair Broadcast Group.
Mm-hmm.
I have a reporter friend, and he wrote an article on it, who likes to watch The View. He's watching The View. Everyone knows The View leans left and is known to be somewhat liberal. Anytime a subject matter comes up on The View, a national television program that in any way touches upon something that's going on in DC from the executive that is a little bit disfavorable, the program gets interrupted by a infomercial, or worse, Club 700 shows up in the airwaves in the middle of the show. Do you know that? Did you know that happened?
No, I'm not watching a whole lot of TV during the day, but I've heard that there are things happening on the local level like that. They did that with Jimmy Kimmel. It's most of Sinclair's ABC affiliates. They do that locally. They did that with Jimmy Kimmel when Jimmy Kimmel said something about Charlie Kirk.
They just took it out?
Yeah. Yeah, they just took him off for a while.
Oh, they took him off. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I think. Yeah, I'm still blaming you for me getting terminated. I take it as
may have been the best thing that happened to you. Okay,
it was a badge of honor. But I do think sometimes I have argued that the press, having the power that they do, and people clinging to what they hear on the TV set, need to get away from it because it's not really always gospel. And I think they're becoming almost a fourth branch of government. If that's a thing to say,
and
that's acceptable.
Part of the it's getting worse because now you're seeing the new Rupert Murdochs who took Fox News and put it into an arm of the Republican Party. You're now seeing the new Rupert Murdoch and David Ellison and others that are taking over CBS, who may be buying CNN and Time Warner. I mean, it is a consolidation to where the press will be, quote, free, but it's just going to be all but state-run media, and that is a real problem. And in Alabama, we don't have major newspapers in Huntsville, Birmingham, Mobile. We've still got a daily in Montgomery. We've got a daily in Tuscaloosa, a couple others around the state. But we don't have that same kind. Everything is clickbait. Everything is designed that way. And we have lost so much with regard to the media. And Sinclair and others who own at least local stations all over the country are controlling. You and I've talked about this. Sinclair is one of the worst because anything coming out of Washington is programmed, and the local news anchor is reading this in Birmingham may be reading the same thing that they're reading in other places around the country.
Yeah, there's
same
no doubt
language.
about it.
It's really away from local news. We want to try to get back to some of the weeklies that are going on and let people look at some of this news. But even in the campaign, we're having to deal with social media to try to get our messages out there.
Well, when we were founded, we obviously had an issue back when the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution were being developed, which took, a decade or so to make happen. There's obviously a reason for having a freedom of press.
Right.
And to me, that reason was to inform the people of what's going on at their government level so that they know But I don't feel that we have that anymore.
Right. No.
And I'm not saying they don't have the freedom of press, and it is press, but I don't think how it's being used was how it was intended to be used. So you have
you're absolutely right.
You have a handful of people delivering a message to the population of 330 million people that are listening, if that many are listening. And I hear a lot of people don't even turn on the news anymore. They've become aware of the fact that it's just a story. You know,
right.
it might have pieces of truth. I mean, I'm interested in watching the moon launch today. Not sure why we want to go back there, but we are. I guess there's some benefit to doing that. But what has happened to the basic safeguards contained in the Bill of Rights? And as a state governor, do you see the possibility of the states having a trickle up effect as opposed to a trickle down effect when it comes to governance?
Oh, I absolutely believe that. And I'm going to tell you just candidly, if I didn't believe that, I wouldn't be running for governor of Alabama, because I think that the governors right now, are the guardrails for democracy in their states. Remember, there is a 10th Amendment, Tommy, that says that any powers not specifically given to the federal government in the Constitution are left to the states. And I think that there's a lot that the states have been trying to do beyond what the federal government is paralyzed and can't do. And that is to provide good housing and affordable housing, health care, to try to get the right health care to folks. Education still should be at a lot of the local level. And voting. I think voting is one of those sacred obligations, and the Constitution says that should all be left to the states with some oversight with Congress that could tune in if they so desire. But some of these executive orders that the president is trying to sign about doing away with mail-in votes in those states that have them, do away with early voting in the states that have it. The president of the United States cannot do that. Congress could act if they wanted to, but it's left to the states.
He voted by mail.
I know.
And you know what his response was? Because I'm president.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, well, but you know what? Here's the interesting thing.
He's laughable.
But at the same time, the entire administration is, because I'm president, I can do this. My friends are favored nations. My enemies I'm coming after. Even the other day, after the Tiger Woods wreck and his arrest, the president immediately starts calling on a pardon for him, even though he's got a string of issues like this, calling on just so that he could maybe not derail his road back to the Masters and to play in the Masters. It is all about who is benefiting this president right now. And it's very openly transactional. And we've got to do something about that. Congress is not going to act. For instance, they're not, look at everything, all the stock market manipulations that's been going on with this war. It is stunning how the markets are moving based on something the president says. You don't think that there are people in that administration making money, hands in fist right now, off of the market manipulation? Just like Senator Tuberville, Nancy Pelosi, a number of people that are making money off stock trades with using insider information that they're getting in their capacities. Those are the kind of things I think people are seeing more and more of, that they're getting disgusted with.
Well, we need to wrap up in just a minute, but I want to talk just briefly about the upcoming governor race. And I don't mean to be presumptive, but I'm assuming you're going to be against Tommy Tuberville come November. for governor in our state. And I would like you to address, if you don't mind bragging on yourself, what makes you the better candidate when, I mean, it's so obvious to me because of all of your experience in so many different levels, the length of time you've been involved going back to the Howell Heflin days, and probably even before that, versus a football coach who doesn't live in Alabama, who has been given virtually zero responsibilities in the Senate, because I don't think anybody has any confidence in his ability to do what is called upon to do in high level responsibility positions. Uh, uh, Speak to that issue and what you think the vulnerabilities are and why you should be our next governor.
Well, I appreciate that. Look, I think that Alabama has an opportunity to turn things around. If people are satisfied with where we are in Alabama right now, if they're satisfied that we're still struggling with our education system, if you're satisfied that we have wages way below, below the national average, and we're not moving up, even though the cost of living in Alabama is continuing to rise, and wages are not meeting that same cost, particularly for women and minorities. If that's okay, then I am not your candidate. If you want to shake things up, if you want to look at things in Montgomery and say we can do better, then that's, I think, what we're offering. And quite frankly, I don't want, and I appreciate your saying about the primary. I'm not taking that primary for granted. We're working hard to win the primary on May the 19th, and then we're going to be working hard to win the November election by offering folks not just an alternative, but a vision, and a vision that has more people engaged in the political process and the government process, civic engagement, giving people more education about what's actually going on in Montgomery with their legislature, with their statewide office holders, having more of a say in whether or not we can get a lottery, which we desperately need to do. That millions of dollars are going out of Alabama every week on lottery, and we're not getting anything in return. Doing things for the education system, doing things for the prison system, making sure we expand Medicaid so that people around this state have access to health care. And I think that is so important. People forget how important it is for good health care, particularly in rural areas. You go to any hospital in Birmingham right now, you go to any professional clinic, you're going to see people coming into Birmingham from all over the place because they don't have, it's not that they want the better, it's that they don't even have it in their county, or they don't have it in their municipality. And we've got to make changes like that, because that helps not just the health of Alabamians, but it helps the health of Alabama's economy as well. We want to open up markets. There's so many things that we can do. And I just hope people will look at ultimately my record of service to the people of this state, whether it is as U.S. Attorney, Tom, that you and I have talked about, or as in the United States Senate. I'll put my record of service up against Tommy Tuberville's any day of the week, and getting things done for the people, not just scaring people, not dividing people. You're not going to see hateful rhetoric coming out from me like we're seeing so much of now from Tuberville and others that are running over in the Republican primary. We're going to see a campaign that's going to be a call for a crowded table, where there's a place for everybody at this table, because that's how we progress in the state of Alabama, where there's a place for everyone.
Well, I appreciate you being with me today. You used a word, I'd say probably a dozen times in that last commentary that you just made, and the word was people. And I have named this season, We the People. And I think that's what we have gotten away from, the people. The people don't run the country. The country is being run by someone other than those that are being governed, and those that have their own personal stake in an outcome that benefits them and not the people. And that, to me, is the real truth.
100%.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be with me. This is The Real Truth. Doug Jones, next governor of the state of Alabama. Have a great day, and thanks for being with us. Thank you for joining me today on The Real Truth. My name is Tommy Spina. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation. I hope you will follow or subscribe to my podcast and listen in to the next episode. If you found it valuable, please take a moment to rate it and review it. It helps us to reach more listeners that care about the issues that matter. Share it with a friend. Stay engaged and remember, the truth matters. I'll see you next time.